Before you choose a pile, I need to tell you something. The energy coming through this reading feels incredibly interesting because it does not feel like you are learning something completely new. It feels like you are finally getting the confirmation. Many of you have been sensing that there is more happening beneath the surface than you have been shown. You have had questions, you have had doubts, you have wondered whether your intuition was correct. And today's reading is focused on one thing: what you are about to find out, what truth is moving towards you, and why it may change the way you see a situation completely. Take a moment, take a deep breath, look at the piles in front of you, trust your intuition. Which pile is calling your attention first? Pile number one, pile number two, or pile number three? Pause the video if you need more time. And when you are ready, let's begin. So, if you have chosen pile 1, the first thing I want to say is this: the energy around you feels very different from what you have been told. That's the strongest message coming through right away. I don't feel like you have been lied to in a dramatic way. I don't feel manipulation here. I don't feel deception in the traditional sense. What I do feel is missing information. I feel pieces of a puzzle that were never given to you. And because those pieces were missing, you have been trying to understand the situation using incomplete information. It's almost like being asked to read a book with several pages missing. No matter how intelligent you are, no matter how intuitive you are still trying to understand the story without having access to the full story. And that's exactly what I feel is changing you. What you're about to find out is not necessarily shocking, my friend. It's not necessarily dramatic, but it is important because it explains things that have never made sense before. Many of you have spent a lot of time asking yourself, why did they do that? Why did they pull away? Why did things suddenly change? Why did something feel different even when nobody was talking about it? The cards keep bringing me back to confusion. Not because you were not paying attention, not because you were not listening, but because you simply did not have all the facts. Now, let's look a little deeper. The energy here feels strongly connected to someone's internal struggle. What's interesting is that I don't feel this struggle was visible. This person may have appeared confident, they may have appeared certain, they may have acted as though they had everything figured out. But internally, I see conflict here. A lot of conflict. I see someone questioning themselves, questioning their emotions, questioning their decisions, questioning what they really wanted. And one of the biggest things you're about to understand is that this situation was never as simple as it appeared. For many of you, you blamed yourself. You assumed you did wrong. You assumed you caused the distance. You assumed you were somehow responsible for whatever happened. The cards are strongly pushing back against that belief because what I'm seeing looks much more connected to someone else's inner world than anything you did. Now, that doesn't mean you are perfect. Nobody is. But I do feel some of you have been carrying responsibility that never belonged to you. You have been carrying guilt that is not yours. You have been carrying questions that were created by someone else's inability to communicate honestly. And I think that's one of the revelations coming through. You are going to realize that you have been giving yourself far too much blame. The next thing I'm seeing is timing keeps appearing again and again. And this feels important because many of you wanted answers months ago. You wanted clarity months ago. You wanted understanding months ago. But the cards keep showing me that the information was not ready to surface yet. It's, almost like people needed time, situations needed time, emotions needed time, and now things are reaching a point where the truth can no longer stay hidden. I keep hearing the phrase, the truth has become too heavy to carry. That won't resonate with everyone I know, but it's coming through very, very clearly. Something that has been held inside for a long time is becoming harder to hold. Someone who has avoided a conversation is finding it harder to avoid. Someone who has avoided their feelings is finding it harder to ignore them. Someone who has avoided reality is finding it harder to escape it. And my friend, that's creating movement. Now, the another thing that I'm noticing is that many of you have been receiving these signs. Yes, little signs, small moments, tiny, tiny observations, things that made you pause and think, that's strange, or that doesn't make sense, or there's definitely more to this. The cards are telling me those observations mattered. Your intuition was trying to connect the dots before your mind had enough information. And honestly, I feel many of you are about to have a moment where everything clicks, a moment where you suddenly understand, a moment where you look back and think, now it all makes sense. And that moment feels incredibly important because it's going to free you from a lot of mental exhaustion. Because some of you have been trapped in a cycle of questioning. You are questioning yourself, you are questioning another person, you are questioning what happened, you are questioning what was real, you are questioning what was not. And I know that's exhausting, my friend. And I feel the universe, the divine, is bringing clarity because you have carried that uncertainty long, long enough. Now, let's talk about what this revelation changes, okay? The first thing is that it is going to change your perspective for sure. Right now, many of you are looking at a situation through a very, very narrow lens. You're looking at it through the information which is currently available to you. But once this new information which I'm talking about arrives, your entire understanding is going to shift. Yes. Just imagine looking at a photograph from 6 inches away. You only see a small section, right? Then suddenly you step back. Now you see the entire picture. That's the energy here. You're stepping back. You're seeing the bigger picture. And once you see it, my friend, many of your old questions are going to disappear. Not because you stop caring, but because you finally understood. The second thing, this changes your confidence. I keep hearing this message very, very strongly. Trust yourself more, trust yourself more, trust yourself more. Yes, Paiwan, I genuinely feel that one of your biggest lessons has been learning to trust your own intuition. Because there have been moments when your intuition was speaking loudly, and yet you talked about out of it. You talked yourself out of it. And I'm also saying you searched for proof, you searched for validation, you searched for permission to believe what you already knew. The cards are saying, my friend, no more. This experience is teaching you to trust your inner knowing, to trust what you sense, to trust what you feel, to trust your observations. Not blindly, not irrationally, but confidently. Because your intuition has been much more accurate than you have given it credit for. Now, let's look at the outcome energy. Here, the outcome doesn't look very chaotic, and that's very interesting. Many people assume that hidden truths create drama, but that's not what I see here for pile one. What I'm seeing is I'm seeing the relief, I see understanding here, I see emotional release, I see the burden of uncertainty lifting. For some of my viewers, this may involve a conversation, and for others, it may involve information arriving indirectly. For some, it may simply be a personal realization. But regardless of how it happens, the result feels the same clarity. And that's the word clarity. Yes. The truth does not create confusion, the truth removes the confusion. And that's exactly what I feel happening here. Okay. Now, let's bring through the final guidance. The cards are asking you to stop chasing what is meant to reveal itself naturally. I know that's easier said than done. I know many of you want answers right now. But the energy is showing that answers are already moving towards you. You do not need to force them, my friend. You do not need to investigate every detail. You do not need to carry the entire situation on your shoulders. Allow life to reveal what needs to be revealed. Allow the truth to arrive. Allow yourself to trust the process. Because the strongest message of this entire pile is not that you are about to discover something shocking, it's that you are about to understand something very, very important. And that understanding changes everything. Thank you, Pile 1. If this reading resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Take only what resonates, leave what doesn't, and trust yourself. Because your intuition has been leading you in the right direction all along. If you choose Pile 2, the energy coming through feels very different from the Pile 1. Pile 1 was about missing information, and Pile 2 feels more like a hidden perspective. The first message I keep hearing is you have been looking at the situation through one lens. And what you are about to find out is going to show you another side of the story. Now, before we go deeper, I want to say something important here, pile 2. I don't feel this reading is about discovering that someone was secretly plotting against you. I'm not getting any betrayal energy, or I don't feel a shocking secret. What I feel is misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that has lasted longer than it should have. And because of that misunderstanding, you have been carrying beliefs that may not actually be true. For some of you, you have convinced yourself that someone does not care. For others, you have convinced yourself that an opportunity is gone forever. And for some of you, you have convinced yourself that the situation ended because of one specific reason. But my friend, the cards keep showing me that the reality is much more complicated than that, yes. And there's a missing layer here. Maybe a missing explanation, a missing perspective. And once that perspective becomes clear, your entire understanding is going to change. The first thing which I am noticing is that you have been trying very hard to make sense of something, almost too hard. I feel a lot of mental energy around this spiral, a lot of analysis, a lot of replaying the conversations again and again, a lot of trying to understand why something happened the way it did. Some of you have spent months doing this, others may have spent years. For some, I'm seeing a decade. And honestly, it feels exhausting because every time you think you have found an answer, another question appears. Every time you think you have figured it out, something does not quite fit. That's because you have been working with incomplete information, my friend. Not false information, just incomplete information. And that's a big difference, isn't it? I keep seeing an image of someone standing in front of a door that has been closed for a very long time. Behind that door is understanding, not necessarily reconciliation, not necessarily a perfect outcome, but understanding. And I feel that door is beginning to open. Slowly, very slowly, but it's opening. Now, let's talk about what you are actually about to find out. Okay? The strongest message here is that someone has been struggling far more than you realized. This could be a romantic connection, maybe a friend, a family member, or even someone from your past. The point is that you have only seen a small part of their experience. The cards are showing me someone carrying pressure. Pressure they did not talk about, pressure they did not share, pressure they may have hidden from almost everyone around them. And what's interesting is that many of their actions make much more sense once you understand what they were carrying. Again, this is not an excuse for poor behavior. It's not a free pass, but it is an explanation. And explanations can be incredibly healing because explanations help us stop personalizing everything. Some of you have been asking, why wasn't I enough? Why didn't they choose me? Why did they pull away? The cards are saying, my friend, that the answer may have had much less to do with you than you think. Sometimes people are fighting battles we know nothing about. Sometimes people are making decisions from fear. Sometimes people are acting from wounds that existed long before we entered their lives. And I feel many of you are about to understand that. Now, another thing that's coming through is timing. I know timing appeared in pile 1 as well, but it feels different here. Pile 2 feels like delayed understanding, something that could not be understood at the time it happened. Have you ever looked back on an experience years later and suddenly understood why it happened? That's the energy here. I feel many of you are reaching a point where you will see things working in your favor. You are starting to see things differently. You are starting to notice the little details you missed before. You are starting to understand motivations that once seemed confusing. And the result is wisdom, the real wisdom, not the kind that comes from reading a quote online, the kind that comes from living through something difficult and finally understanding what it taught you. Now, let's talk about what changes once this truth becomes clear. The first thing that changes is the story you have been telling yourself. Because we all create stories. When information is missing, the mind fills in the blanks. The problem is that the stories we create are often much harsher than reality. Some of you have created stories where you were rejected, stories where you failed, stories where you were not valued, stories where you were not enough. The cards are asking you to question those stories because I don't feel they are entirely accurate. What you're about to find out challenges those what you are about to find out is the challenges and do challenge those assumptions on the basis of which you have created those stories. And that's why this reading feels so powerful because once the story changes, everything changes. Your confidence changes, your perspective changes, your emotional state changes. Even your future decisions begin to change. Now, another message which is coming through is forgiveness. Okay? This doesn't mean you have to forgive anyone immediately. It doesn't mean you have to reconnect. It doesn't mean you have to invite someone back into your life. But understanding often creates space for forgiveness. And forgiveness is not about the other person, my friend. It's about your peace. It's about freeing yourself from carrying emotional weight that no longer belongs to you. Some of you have been carrying anger also, others have been carrying the sadness, the disappointment, and the cards are suggesting you that understanding may help you put some of that weight down. Not because what happened was okay, my friend, but because you're finally seeing the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is changing everything. Now, let's look at the future energy. What I see here is emotional freedom. That's the phrase that's coming through. Emotional freedom. Not because every problem disappears, not because every question is answered, but because you stop being trapped by the story you have been carrying. You stop replaying the same cycle. You stop asking the same questions. You stop searching for answers in places where they no longer exist. And that creates space. Space for healing, space for growth, space for new opportunities, a space for new experiences. So, by two, I honestly feel this reading is less about another person and more about your own breakthrough moment. The revelation that's coming is important, but what's even more important is what it allows you to release. Because I feel many of you have been carrying something far longer than necessary. And the cards are showing that you are finally ready to let it go. Now, let's bring through the final guidance for pile 2. So overall the message is very simple. Don't be afraid to change your mind. Don't be afraid to see things differently. Don't be afraid to update your understanding when new information arrives. Growth often requires us to release old narratives. Growth often requires us to admit that we didn't have the full picture. And that's not the weakness, my friend, that's wisdom. The truth you are about to discover is not here to hurt you. Okay, it's here to free you. It's here to help you see things clearly. It's here to help you move forward with greater confidence, greater peace, and greater understanding. And once that's happened, everything begins to feel lighter. So, thank you, Pile 2. If this reading resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And please remember, sometimes the most powerful truth is not what someone else was hiding. Sometimes it's the truth that sets you free. If you choose pile 3, the energy coming through feels very, very powerful. In fact, out of all the three piles, this one feels like the biggest turning point. Not because something dramatic is about to happen overnight, my friend, not because your entire life changes tomorrow, but because the truth that's coming towards you has the potential to completely change how you see yourself. And honestly, that's even more important. The first thing I keep hearing is you have been underestimating yourself. Very strong message, very direct message. You have been underestimating your strength, you have been underestimating your progress, you have been underestimating how much you have already grown. And what's interesting is that I don't think you have done this intentionally. I think life has been very heavy. I think you have been carrying responsibilities. I think you have been dealing with challenges. I think you have been so focused on surviving that you have not stopped to recognize how far you have actually come. The cards keep showing me someone climbing a mountain. When you are climbing, you are focused on the next step. You are focused on not falling, not failing. You are focused on getting through the day. You really stop and look behind you. You really notice how much grounded you have already covered. And that's the energy I'm getting here. Many of you are much further along than you realize. Now, let's look at what you're about to find out, my friend. Because this feels less like information arriving from another person and more like a realization arriving within yourself. And that's beautiful. The truth that's coming forward feels connected to your value, your worth, your potential, your future. For some viewers, there may be an external confirmation too. Maybe a message, an opportunity, a conversation, validation, recognition. But what makes this important is not the external event itself. What makes it important is what it confirms. It confirms something you have been questioning about yourself. I feel many of you have been waiting for proof that you are moving in the right direction or not. Proof that your effort matters, proof that your growth is real, proof that you are not wasting your time. The cards are showing me that confirmation is getting closer. And once it arrives, it changes the way you see everything. Now, I want to talk about self doubt because self doubt is all over this pile. Not extreme self doubt, not complete insecurity, but subtle self doubt. The kind that quietly follows you around, the kind that whispers, maybe you're not ready, maybe you are not good enough, maybe you should wait, maybe should play it safe. And what interesting is that these doubts have been influencing your decisions more than you realize. The cards are showing me moments where you held yourself back, moments where you did not fully trust your abilities, moments where you question opportunities that were actually meant for you. And the truth that's coming toward you is challenging all of that. It's showing you that you have been seeing yourself through a smaller lens than you deserve. Now, another thing that's coming through very strongly here is recognition. Pile 3, I feel many of you are entering a season of recognition. For some, this may happen in your career, for others, through relationships, for others, through personal achievements. But I keep seeing a moment where you realize that people see more in you than you thought. Sometimes we assume nobody notices our effort, nobody notices our sacrifices, nobody notices our growth. But the cards are showing me that your impact has been much larger than you realize. People have been paying attention to you silently. Opportunities have been developing behind the scenes. Doors have been opening quietly. And many of you are about to become aware of that. Now, let's talk about the thing that changes everything because every pile has a central message. And your message is that you're not behind. I need to say that again. You are not behind. Some of you have spent years comparing your journey to other people, comparing your relationships, comparing your success, comparing your goals, comparing your progress, comparing your timeline. And the cards are showing that comparison has distorted your perspective. Because when you compare your life to someone else, highlight reel, you will always feel behind. Okay. So when you compare your beginning to someone else middle, you will always feel behind. The truth you're about to discover helps you see your journey more clearly. And once that happens, a lot of pressure disappears, a lot of fear disappears, a lot of unnecessary self judgment disappears. Now, let's look at what this revelation creates. The first thing which I'm seeing is confidence, not ego, not arrogance. Confidence, the quiet kind. The kind that does not need approval from everyone, the kind that does not need constant reassurance, the kind that comes from knowing who you are. And I feel many of you have been building that confidence without realizing it. Every challenge you have survived, every lesson you have learned, every disappointment you have overcome, every difficult season you have navigated, all of it has been preparing you for this next chapter. The cards are showing me a person stepping into their own power. Yes. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because they are finally seeing themselves clearly, very clearly. And that changes everything. Now, another message which is coming through is opportunity. This feels very, very important. I don't know exactly what form it takes for each of you. For some, it's career, for some, it's love, for some, it's finances, for some, it's a personal project. But I keep seeing opportunity connected to this pile 3, an opening, a chance, a possibility. Something becoming available that was not available before. The cards are asking you to remain open, my friend, because sometimes opportunities arrive in unexpected packaging. Yes, and through unexpected peoples. Sometimes they don't look the way we imagined. Sometimes they require courage. Sometimes they require trust. But I genuinely feel that many of you are moving towards a period of expansion, and the revelation coming towards you helps prepare you for that. Are you interested in knowing about the future energy? Let's talk about it. Because what I'm seeing from the card is that your future is hopeful, very hopeful. Not because everything becomes perfect, life does not work that way. We all know. But because you stop carrying a belief that has been limiting you. You stop seeing yourself as less capable than you are. You stop seeing yourself as less valuable than you are. You stop seeing yourself as less ready than you are. And once those limitations begin to fall away, your choices change. Your energy changes. Your confidence changes. Your future changes. That's why this pile feels so, so significant. The revelation is not just information, it's transformation. It's the shift in self perception, and self perception affects everything. Now, let's bring through the final guidance for pile 3. The cards, want you to stop waiting for permission. Yes, permission to begin, permission to grow, permission to try, permission to believe in yourself, permission to pursue what you want. You do not need someone else to tell you that you are ready. You do not need a sign every time to take a step forward. You do not need universe approval or anybody else approval. The message is simple, my friend. Trust yourself, trust your growth, trust your journey, and trust the process, the progress you have already made. Because what you're about to find out is not that you need more, it's that you have had more within you all along than you realized. And once you truly understand that, everything begins to change. Thank you, Pile 3. If this reading resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and remember, sometimes the most life changing discovery is not learning something new about the world, it's finally seeing yourself clearly. And those were your messages, pile 1, pile 2, pile 3. I hope this reading brought you some clarity, confirmation, or a new perspective on whatever situation brought you here today. One thing I want you to remember before you leave is this: the truth does not always arrive when we want it to. Sometimes it arrives when we are finally ready to understand it. And that's the energy I feel throughout this entire reading. For many of you, something is becoming clearer, something is coming into focus. Something you have been questioning for a long time is beginning to make more sense. Whether that truth comes through a conversation, a realization, opportunity, or simply a shift in perspective. Trust that what needs to be revealed will reveal itself. You don't have to force clarity. You don't have to chase every answer. You don't have to carry the weight of uncertainty forever. Allow life to unfold. Allow yourself to trust your intuition. And most importantly, Allow yourself to move forward with confidence, even before every question is answered, because your journey is not meant to stay stuck in confusion. It's meant to move forward and towards understanding. If this reading resonated with you, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know which file did you choose, what message stood out the most. Did anything in the reading confirm what you have already been feeling? Your experiences may help someone else who come across this reading. And if you're new here, welcome to Tarot with Donna. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications if you would like to see more timeless picker card readings, collective tarot messages, love readings, and spiritual guidance. Thank you so much for spending your time and energy with me today. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, trust yourself, and remember sometimes the answers you have been searching for are already on their way to you. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay grounded, stay blessed. With love.